Social media architectures are engineered with a singular purpose: to optimize for frictionless consumption and the immediate resolution of complex ideas. But rigorous academic cognition operates entirely differently. True intellectual work demands epistemic discomfort and a strict refusal to collapse nuance into easily digestible binaries. If the underlying digital system actively suppresses complexity, we have to ask where deep, high-friction academic thinking actually manages to survive. To answer that, researchers conducted a massive digital excavation of the Anthropology ecosystem, meticulously evaluating 45 distinct posts and their thousands of nested comment hierarchies. High-quality intellectual discourse does not vanish on digital networks. Instead, its location is structurally driven downward, pushed deep into the architecture to escape mass algorithmic visibility. This chart shows the primary discovery threshold from that study. Out of the entire ecosystem, only 9 artifacts scored at or above a 21 out of 30 for authentic disciplinary engagement. Look at the highest scoring artifact, achieving 26 out of 30. It asked, how do anthropologists handle the concept of race? The thread scored high by bypassing the accessible mantra that race is merely a social construct. Embedded practitioners use the space to force that essential social concept into a direct, deeply uncomfortable collision with the hard data of forensic osteology. They detailed how multivariate analytical software, like Fordisk, can quantitatively map biological markers, such as the specific dimensions of a nasal aperture or a metapic suture. The practitioners then executed a theoretical tightrope walk. They refused to allow this metric data to validate 19th century essentialism, explaining instead that forensic anthropologists use biological variation to estimate how a society would have categorized the individual in life. True academic authenticity on these platforms is measured by its capacity to sit with epistemic discomfort, entirely rejecting the pressure to reconcile complex realities into algorithmically friendly soundbites. Original posts on these platforms are subject to immediate aerodynamic demands. To survive the initial recommendation algorithm, the text must be heavily generalized and sanded down to prevent users from scrolling past. This creates the inversion principle. The most rigorous academic work happens almost exclusively in the third or fourth tier of nested comment hierarchies. Down in these subterranean tiers, distance from the algorithm's gaze creates a sanctuary. Here, users engage in granular, unglamorous academic correction. Practitioners use this negative space to perform vital epistemic boundary marking and deliver detailed methodological pedagogy to those who actually want to learn. They deploy foundational theorists like Marcel Mauss, utilizing them not as performative intellectual badges, but as functional tools to dismantle an original post's flawed framing. For data scientists and researchers studying digital communities, the comment is operationally the post. Analyzing only surface-level data yields the platform's architectural bias, zeroing out actual human insight. Authenticity also maps unevenly across the platform's geography. Quality varies wildly based strictly on the specific academic subfield being discussed. Domains like primatology or cultural anthropology fall into an accessibility trap. Because concepts like ruins or apes have a broad public vocabulary, they invite mass participation fueled by Wikipedia summaries, which consistently drives the intellectual quality downward, eroding any nuance. Conversely, the highest densities of authentic cognition are quarantined within obscure subfields like environmental and economic anthropology. Artifact 5 serves as a prime example. Here, a meticulous debate over substantivist versus formalist economic theory successfully filtered out performative layperson engagement. The specific theoretical frameworks of anthropologists like Marshall Sahlins create a massive, highly effective barrier to entry. The operational reality is stark. A user simply cannot fake a technical debate about the intricacies of actor network theory on the fly. In digital ecosystems, accessibility is a vulnerability. Terminological friction serves as a literal shield, filtering out the noise and maintaining an exceptionally high floor for intellectual quality. The data also requires a temporal archaeology, mapping the subreddit's archives across the epoch from 2011 to 2023. During the pre-viral epoch from 2011 to 2017, the subreddit functioned like a digital faculty lounge. The community was small enough to self-police its own normative disciplinary standards. This dual-axis timeline illustrates a sharp temporal decay. As the user base expanded exponentially, authenticity scores followed a downward trajectory. Growth introduced the sentiment trap. Users weaponized indigenous practices purely to critique capitalism, yielding high upvote velocity but zero anthropological rigor. Peak authenticity hasn't vanished entirely from the modern platform. Instead, serious practitioners developed structural defense mechanisms, retreating into heavily formatted enclaves like weekly reading groups. Platform scaling inevitably destroys niche academic norms. The data proves that algorithmic hypergrowth and deep, sustained intellectual synthesis are structurally incompatible. To surface these hidden insights, researchers had to completely abandon traditional platform metrics, explicitly ignoring the upvote. This grid displays the specific tool designed to separate the noise from the gems, the 10-metric authenticity rubric. The rubric scores traits like negative space presence, which measures a text's ability to resist the platform's demand for immediate, neat answers. Evaluating digital text through these specific, friction-based metrics is the only reliable way to map genuine academic thought on the internet. Standard data scraping tools remain blind to authenticity because they measure the aerodynamics of the content. The rubric succeeds because it measures the density. The ultimate, sobering reality of this data is that the brilliant academic artifacts highlighted in the study are essentially survivorship anomalies. These deep, rigorous debates exist entirely in spite of the platform's incentive structure. They receive absolutely no support from the recommendation algorithm. Consider the intense linguistic debates invoking Noam Chomsky's foundational theories on recursive language. These threads survive because dedicated specialists refuse to let reductive evolutionary claims stand uncontested. When an embedded researcher takes the time to write a 500-word exegesis in a buried thread, they are performing a vital act of pedagogical resistance against the medium itself. The digital ecosystem is meticulously designed to elevate the weightless, ensuring that intellectual substance must violently fight just to be seen. Discovering the discipline's true voice requires researchers to actively fight the sorting mechanisms. Look past the viral post, read against the grain, and seek out the friction.